All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, it is such a delight. I'm glad you brushed off all the glitter and sparkle and magic from your No Kings demonstration this weekend. Yes. Quite lovely. I'm sure Kim could barely leave her house, all the autograph seekers, when they heard that Kim McAllister.
You're funny.
The Kim McAllister was actually going to be marching. It was
hilarious.
Shitting the whole crowd.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. I am excited that Kim is here, though, as is Tony, everyone.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony, again, working us into one of his 50 jobs, and we are excited to have a lot of content for you today. Have, of course, Gary Dietrich, bottom of the hour. We'll talk about the politics of the moment. There is certainly a lot going on. There is a political flex going on in Washington, and then there is a flex from the people that we saw with the marches this weekend. And then you bring in the international instability, which has, I think, rocketed literally to the top of the things you have to worry about list. And then, of course, the tragedy in Minnesota, the political violence that I fear could be a sign of things to come. So, you know, when you look at everything going on in America right now, there are things to be encouraged by. I'd be very encouraged by the way so many people took to the street this weekend. I mean, that is a major undertaking. That is a major movement, and it will take a major movement to push back on a lot of what's going on. If you're not happy, and I'd suggest you shouldn't be, with the authoritarian practices and playbook that's being instituted in Washington. You have no congressional check anymore, so now the people really have to remind those in charge that there is a point at which the people will push back. Now, you may say, well, those are probably non-Trump voters, Democrats who took to the streets. We will talk about the coalition of people that ended up as part of this No Kings March. It wasn't just Democrats. And it was interesting. On the radio in Los Angeles yesterday, there was a caller who said, I married someone who's here illegally. I am here legally.
Mm-hmm.
I voted for Donald Trump.
Ooh.
I said, wow, you must really want to get rid of your esposa.
That's right. Sayonara, wife.
Right. But actually, what he said, and this is the reason I mention it, is that he is surprised by these raids. He's surprised by the brutality of the raids. He's surprised by the aggressiveness of the raids. And he's surprised by how complete the dragnet is, how they're bringing in to these deportation buses everybody who's standing around at everything from a quinceañera to a Home Depot. And so this aggressive posture is something that surprised him. Now, I'd suggest he shouldn't have been surprised, but nonetheless, I think that represents a kind of person and voter the last time round who is a bit taken aback by everything going on. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about the protests in the streets. We'll talk more about the No Kings protests and exactly what impact that might have on policy as we get going in the show. I also want to mention that in addition to Gary Dietrich, I have a guy who I really was looking forward to talking to for some time now, Bill Black. He is a friend of the show, been on before, and he is a brilliant professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri. And he is also a brilliant mind and teaches a course on crypto and crypto regulation, cryptocurrency, okay? So if you've wondered about fintech, as it's called, crypto, digital currency, I've tried to explain in rudimentary ways sort of both my understanding of it and also stuff we need to know, because I think crypto is a big part of the way in which this administration monies itself, how the Trump administration has been able to funnel literally billions of dollars to Donald Trump. We'll talk about that. But I think Dr. Black will be able to better speak to a lot of these specifics. And so that'll be in hour 2. I also will just mention, this is kind of in keeping with something I was reading about today. Real estate markets are roiling right now. The uptick in the real estate market that had been projected doesn't seem to be materializing. In fact, maybe just the opposite is happening. And I mention this because in the real estate scandal, the savings and loan scandal, this was your federal whistleblower, Bill Black, and he will join us in the second hour, as I say. He really is one of those guys who has done so much. He was he directed litigation of the federal thrift agency back in back again in those days of the savings and loan crisis. So we'll talk to him again hour 2. So that's a little bit of what we will be doing. Thank you for being here. Please smash the like button if you would. The reason I say that, I'm starting
iron rod
to realize why they say hit the thumbs up. I'm starting to, why, we've only been on the air 2.5 years before I finally
just
realized.
Now figured it out. Oh,
because if you hit the thumbs up, it helps us in the possibility of showing up, being fed to people who've never seen the show before. I think that's kind of the way it is. Is that right, Tony? Something like that. I think that's
yeah.
So,
it's a recommendation engine, they call it, right? So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
And that is why you need to hear. So I literally never known that until the last week or so. Smash the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Don't do it for yourself. Do it so that possibly, maybe, we'll show up in another feed.
Do it for the recommendation engine. I love that.
Do it for America, God damn it. Do it for America. Be a patriot, my friends. And let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, there was a lot going on this weekend, and we'll get to a bunch of it. I mentioned the parade. This is the military parade in Washington that Donald Trump ordered up. You remember he saw the Bastille Day parade in France. And he said, I want one of those. And we don't really do this sort of thing. Usually when you see these kind of things, you see them in the midst of another parade, like a Rose Parade or a Macy's Parade. You'll see some representation of the armed forces. These are classic World War I and World War II armaments, apparently. The idea was to get a lot of this hardware that historically is important, and even some of these uniforms that are that's a Vietnam era uniform that these guys are wearing. Your idea behind it, the philosophy behind it, was to look back on this birthday, not of Donald Trump, but birthday of the United States military, U.S. Army. You can see there. Yeah. U.S. Army was at 250 years old.
Right.
And the idea was to kind of show you in this parade all of the different armaments historically, and there was a crowd there along the. I know the vibe is nobody showed up. It was, I'd say, sparsely attended for a Washington parade. I grew up in Washington D.C., and we've had some big parades, as you might imagine, and the parade route was lined with people, but it was a thin crowd, and it was certainly, they think, around 10,000 people who showed up. That really is a paltry number compared to the ways in which Americans clotted the streets of so many cities and towns and villages to make the point that they wanted nothing to do with the autocracy that they see brewing in Washington. It was the No Kings protest. Tony, you have some pictures of that, or the this is the way that looked. Yeah.
Quite
Kim,
the
maybe you can
difference.
identify where these are. Yeah.
I from across America, unless these are the pictures you sent over to Tony, I think these are from around the country. I thought it was interesting, though, if they were trying not to seem like this was an authoritarian kind of, military parade, then why did they build that particular parade stand
Oh, you're talking about back at the
military parade? Did you notice how that
yeah.
looked? Yeah, we have some audio of Trump speaking from the
Yeah, this is
parade
just to
stand.
give people an idea of what what America looked like over the weekend. If you missed any of it, I'm sure most of you saw pictures, but these are a few more. So this is the review stand again back in Washington at his military parade. Your point is that review stand was.
I found it to be black and gold and imposing. You can see the White House in the background, which is kind of a good way to showcase the White House. But it just seemed, I don't know. How does it look to you? Does it look rather Germany? I don't know.
I'm going to be honest. I mean, I try to be honest on this stuff. I'm not just a homer. It looks fine. I don't know. It looks like those are the Army colors or something. I'm not really bothered by the colors. I mean, the official colors of the U.S. Army are black and gold, Kim.
Right.
So
well, there you go.
on you.
Like the way that looked.
I am, I'm just.
You just don't get it.
You don't, Kim. You don't.
You don't.
You have Trump derangement syndrome, is what you have. That's your problem.
And I do. Good.
Yeah. Military parade would have been more appropriate on Veterans Day or the 4th of July. Well, you're right, John Watson, when you say that. But that's not Trump's birthday. So, I mean, what are you, some kind of...
have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, maybe you should go back to your commie friends and you can celebrate on the 4th of July. When my president, my Lord of Savior, Donald Trump, has a birthday, I like to get a parade out. If I can hang it on the birthday of the Army, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put it on that those colors, those Army colors that Kim insists on all the time.
God.
Yeah, all right.
Kim, how are you?
All right.
The estimates for the attendance on No Kings Parade or No Kings protest, rather, at least 5 million people across the country.
Wow.
That's a pretty good. I mean,
that's pretty good. I think it might be low. But
I think it's very low from what I saw in my town. And there's always like maybe a handful of protesters on protest days in my small little wine country town. But on the No Kings Day, the place was packed. We have a downtown park, and the park was packed. The boulevard was packed. Surrounding streets were packed, and people were marching up and down the street, peacefully chanting. No one was blocking streets. And then, you know what I noticed afterward? They said it was going to be, I think, 2 to 4 hours. Some people continued, but then I saw people going out to lunch and patronizing small businesses in the downtown area. It was like this business boom on Saturday. So that was kind of a cool.
Yeah, I'm sure for local businesses, I mean, assuming it's a peaceful parade, it's all good. I mean, there's all that walk-in business,
Yeah.
But indeed, it was quite the contrast, we'll say that. In Washington, this vaunted parade cost between $45 million and $100 million. Imagine that when you factor in cleanup and everything, it might even exceed that. And the idea somehow that only 10,000 people showed up. This is the fireworks display at the end of that Washington thing. The fireworks in Washington are pretty spectacular. Again, I grew up there, and I mean, you have this mall, the open space, the backdrop of the monuments. It's pretty, there it is. I mean, man, if you're listening and not watching, I'm listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, I'll just tell you that what you're seeing here is sort of a classic light show. But again, it's framed by the national monument. So, Trump knows that it's going to be a good looking event, and he got the event that he wanted. But there was a hot mic moment captured backstage at the military parade. And then I want to get to the political violence, but the hot mic moment, I'm going to lay out for this in case you have to kind of turn this up to hear it. But it is Trump being asked about Kim from North Korea as a possible guest at the White House, and then Trump saying, he can do what he wants. His people, they pay attention to what he says, or they obey what he says, something like this, which is the way it should be here. It just was an interesting insight into the way he thinks. Not that we necessarily need more, but here's your hot mic moment. I'll lean back, lay out, so you can turn this up if you have to.
Close to seeing Mr. Kim here at the White House?
Could happen. I mean,
we talked about that yesterday.
I think it's something that could happen. Yeah. Hey, he's the head of a country, and I mean, he's the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different.
Right.
He speaks and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
Well,
I want my people to do the same.
Ah.
I mean, again, it just is an insight into who he is
Well,
and
guess
what he wants.
Your people didn't do the same because across the country, people were rising up against you. And that's what it was, too. If you saw the signs everywhere, the creative, clever signs, they were all like, no Trump.
I have to say, for just cleverness, the
Mhm.
rallies around America absolutely ring the bell. I mean, they were very funny and angry and clever all at the same time.
Mhm.
You can see the streets of America, again, big towns, big cities, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, filling the streets. In Texas also. Here is my
This was
favorite sign.
My favorite sign. I should have done this, and I didn't even think of it. God.
Watch/listen to the Mark Thompson Show on YouTube. Come on.
I love it. That's
Absolutely.
D. I love her picture so much.
D, we love you.
Mhm.
Girl, you just woo.
Thank you for that. Here's some other pictures that were sent to us from around the Bay Area. San Francisco Bay Area birthed to this show, so we feel still very close to the Bay Area.
Mhm.
And Kim is still very much in the Bay Area.
I am right in the north of it,
Yeah.
smack in
And
the
so
north heart of it.
north of San Francisco, in a
Mhm.
beautiful little town
Yeah.
where you can still freely protest. So
I love this from Yvonne. She says the weekend was incredible. Palo Alto had a great turnout. We got Joan Baez speaking and singing and honking, lots of honking with a Hamilton King George picture. So nice.
Joan Baez has to be thinking, how many times do I have to do this in my lifetime?
Exactly.
Yeah, and Vietnam War. Now I got this guy coming up. Anyway.
Speaking of Vietnam, PT says, I heard at the parade the troops wore Vietnam-era uniforms as anti-Vietnam War music played. Many say the military snubbed POTUS, who was too stupid to know what they were doing. I don't know if that's the case. I
Yeah.
watched the parade. I didn't chunks of it. I didn't listen to it.
I had I'd heard that as well, and I don't
Mhm.
know if that's true. And I will tell you that maybe I'm too stupid to know. You know, I thought I recognized and pointed it out to you Vietnam era uniforms,
Mhm.
or but I just don't know if their literal marching I'd seen was done in some kind of slothful way, disorganized way, or off rhythm way. I'd heard all of these things as if to, it's like when those hostage videos come out and they say we're being treated well, and they're blinking out SOS in Morse code. That was a famous incident. I don't know if this is the Army or Armed Services way of blinking out SOS as they march, because it was too subtle for me to pick up on, but I did see it in many places.
Wow.
So there's no question, and then I want to move on to the political violence, but there's no question that this president has smeared the military in many, many ways. He's asked them to violate their oath. He's talked repeatedly about firing on civilians. Now he's actually dispatched the Marines to a U.S. city. But before any of that, he had smeared a Gold Star family. He'd indicated that he doesn't want those who've sacrificed and have been wounded in battle and show the effects of that wound. Maybe they're in a wheelchair and other kind of situation where they need assistance. He doesn't want them up front at his rallies. He doesn't want any of these photo ops with the veterans to include veterans who aren't in great shape and look good. Well, I got to think, if you're in the military, it's like, dude, this is from you who worked hard and successfully escaped military service. You phonied up 4 different doctor's notes to get you out of military service. And to be fair to Trump, a lot of people were trying to get out of military service when it was Vietnam. No question about it. But don't now pretend like, you're Mr. Military and your administration is behind cutting veterans benefits. All right. I mean, straight up, who cuts veterans benefits? It's kind of like Social Security. It's always talked about Social Security as the third rail of American politics. It takes this administration to actually put Social Security on the griddle. I mean, it's in the conversation for cutbacks. And so with Veterans Affairs, I mean, they've gutted Veterans Affairs, and that Veterans Affairs administration, they have serious challenges now as a result of things that this administration is doing. So again, if you're rank and file, you might think twice before being so excited about being in a military parade where this guy, Donald Trump, who is heading up everything I've just mentioned and more, is on the reviewing stand. James Watson said they played Fortunate Son, which is a total call out of rich kids who didn't have to go to Vietnam. That is true. Did they really play that?
Well, that would be how applicable.
That, if that's true, that is absolutely trolling. That's absolutely trolling them. No question about it. That is an anti-war song that really, more to the point, talks about in no uncertain terms the fact that rich, connected people, politicians, etc., don't fight the wars and weren't fighting the Vietnam War. They were sending other kids to fight the Vietnam War. So if that's true, that's remarkable. And I'm seeing in the chat that that's exactly what happened. So wow, didn't know that. Interesting. And yeah, as I say, totally owned that moment anyway. Yeah, Fortunate Son was the Creedence song, wasn't it? Fogerty.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sadly, there's other news from
The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll get to Iran. We'll get to Israel. I wanted to get to the situation with political violence in America. This is wildly disturbing, and it's a sign of something that we talked about on this show a while ago. The stochastic terrorism, the one-off terrorism, the lone wolf terrorism. This is, sadly, I think, something that has been enabled by a lot of the political rhetoric right now in America, and then, of course, to see it come together in this, sadly, not only a violent act, but a premeditated act. I mean, this is a plan to knock on a door, take a vehicle that looks like a police vehicle, dress like a police officer, identify yourself as a police officer, and then when the door is open, to commit the kind of violence that was committed over the weekend. It's really shocking and depressing, frankly. I mean, I'm truly despondent over where we are. Tony's got the update on the apprehension and the act himself, or the act itself, I should say, and finding this guy in Minnesota.
The Minnesota man one sheriff's office calls the face of evil this morning in custody, bringing the largest manhunt in state history to an end.
After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter.
The 57-year-old husband and father now facing state and federal charges for the murders of State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband and attempted murders of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Law enforcement saying the break came early Sunday morning when someone spotted this cowboy hat and black sedan, both connected to Belter, about an hour southwest of the shootings.
An alert police officer believed that he may have seen the individual running into the woods.
Authorities setting up a large-scale perimeter, saying Belter, who was armed, surrendered.
The suspect crawled to law enforcement teams and was placed under arrest at that point in time.
Belter's accused of dressing as law enforcement, even wearing this rubber mask and ambushing Democratic lawmakers at their homes early Saturday morning. Senator Hoffman's neighbor heard the attack.
I heard pow, 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 pow. I seen a dark black car backing out of the Hoffman's driveway.
In that SUV, authorities finding a list of prominent lawmakers who support abortion rights from multiple states, including Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, and Nebraska. Several lawmakers assigned heightened security, including U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, who saw the Hortmans the night before they died.
Everyone was rejoicing, happy, the session's behind them, and that was the last time so many of us saw Melissa and Mark.
President Trump saying such horrific violence will not be tolerated. Senator John Hoffman's wife saying she and her husband were shot at least 8 times each, saying in a statement from the hospital, "John and I are both incredibly lucky to be alive," adding there is never a place for senseless political violence and loss of life. And back to the search, authorities stressing help from the public played a huge role in Belter's arrest, telling us they got more than 400 tips in less than 48 hours. Savannah.
Good stuff. Thank you. The grim realities of that kind of political violence are laid bare there. The premeditation, the anger. I mean, firing 8 times into these people. It's I don't. There's so much disturbing about this. This is a guy who worked for a security company, had a military background, so was I guess, a staunch anti-abortion advocate and activist. And again, he was deeply religious. I saw some video of him, dancing in church and proclaiming a love for Christ, which is, usually not accompanied by the kind of bloodthirstiness that is associated with this political violence. It's sadly, and I'll just reiterate it, and I'll get Gary Dietrich's opinion here in just a second, but I think the nature of the political discourse in America, sadly, has become so filled with name calling, with a toxicity and a misrepresentation of fact. And I understand that there's always been, since the beginning of the Republic, there has been some name calling, and there has been and maybe even name calling that rivals the kind of name calling that we're seeing today, and just the demonizing of the opposition. What there is now is an availability of weapons of war on a level that we've never seen before. They're just firearms available in our society. They're just so much more accessible. And so a lot of this verbiage and this rhetoric that exists in the echo chamber of the right, and I understand the left has an echo chamber as well, it's not as filled, I would say respectfully, but I'll take a meeting on this if you want to dissuade me of this position. It's not as filled with this kind of call to potentially violent acts. Now, even as I say that, I think this act happened on the anniversary or close to the anniversary of that softball game. Do you remember there was a softball game at which a left-leaning, a Democrat-supporting assassin went after the players on the field, GOP legislators. So I'm not suggesting it's exclusively a right-wing thing, but I do think the right is whipped up to a feverish pitch, and I fear that right-wing nationalism, right-wing Christo-fascism, all of these things underpin more violence that is tied to the politics of the right wing. I think that's where we are in America. And as I say, happy to have the discussion or debate with anyone who wants to take the other side. But that's my sense of things now. And regardless of my sense of things, this is a profound tragedy. These are people who were the good politicians. They weren't rolling around in corruption. They weren't rolling around in payoffs. These are people who had to make tough deals in coalitions that were so slim. I mean, the Democratic majority in Minnesota is so slim that now it no longer exists with the killings of these people. And the other thing I would say is that they had to, even to make deals to pass a budget in Minnesota, do some things that were pretty tough and that let down a lot of Democratic ideals. You know, I'm talking about cuts to various social programs in Minnesota. So even as we see what's happened in Minnesota, I think we have to look ahead to what may be happening in this country and the sea change in the way we view things. So I'll get Gary Dietrich's view of this, but those are my thoughts just in an instant here. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is Monday, and this guy is so great. You can hear him on iHeart Radio. He is their political analyst, as he is across the CBS television stations. He's with us, as I say, on Mondays. Our former colleague from KGO for years, Gary Dietrich, everyone. Hello, sir.
Mark.
Happy No King's Day, Gary.
What up? Well, an amazingly sobering week, domestically and internationally. And I'm not trying to make light of any of it, because you know me, that's not my style. But some tiny glimmer of hope for us Giants fans and people that follow baseball, a gigantic, my apologies when I go back to my Kennedy School reunion in Boston. I know there's going to be wailing and weeping in the streets, probably even next spring when I get there with the big baseball trade. But Mark, to go back to the seriousness of the last week, I mean, it's domestically, I know we're going to get into that in terms of politics. We should. And then, of course, internationally, the most significant conflict in the Middle East potentially since 1967. So we are in, some would call them perilous times. Some are going to have all kinds of descriptors for them, but certainly sobering.
I do want to get to the Iran-Israel situation and the Middle East tinderbox in a minute. I want to ask you to first comment on, and I'll just kind of do this. Let's talk about the pushback that we saw in the streets of America, and then I want to get to the political violence in America. The pushback with the immense turnout, it was, in a way, I guess, a flex against the Donald Trump military parade, if that was the timing. Maybe you know the origins of the whole thing better than do I, but regardless, so many millions of Americans turned out in the streets. It was quite an impressive show of the people's voice. And on some level, you had to be taking note of that as a political reporter. I wonder if you can kind of do the calculus as to whether the administration takes note of this kind of thing.
Well, I think that they do. And, Democratic lawmakers in Washington and around state capitals do as well. Fortunately, Mark, for the most part, not exclusively, as you know, things did happen in LA that even the organizers of these protests were not happy about in terms of violence towards law enforcement. And I just want to say as an aside, what's interesting to me about that, let's just take that on for a moment because it's worth noting that the violence was being handled in LA by local law enforcement. Okay. That was not National Guard troops for the most part, not the Marines for the most part, although they were surrounding the federal building in LA, et cetera. But this was, we're back to what California leaders wanted, which is basically the direct engagement with the protesters is going to be local law enforcement. And there were still issues. So that's worth noting. I don't know where that goes. I don't think these protests are going away. Let's talk about that larger issue right now. I think the so-called NOKE, is that going to be the new name for the movement? I don't know. It was for the day. You said you juxtapose that to the, the parade in Washington that Trump hosted. But the bottom line is this, we are now in, and I hope it's going to be nonviolent, but we're now in a next level of people's involvement actually in the streets. It's not just on social media anymore, right? It's not just on airwaves. It's in the street. Where this all goes, I don't think anybody has a clear idea, Mark.
It's just seeing this administration work. Something that I've been struck by is that I don't know that they're really in any way influenced by this kind of thing. I think they're influenced by the media buzz. So maybe if there's enough media buzz on something, we've seen Trump back off or modify positions if he sees that, just from a media standpoint, it's a bad look. But I don't know that these protests make an impact. But they may, as I guess neither one of us knows. No one can know, I guess, that is the bottom line. But it was fascinating to see that kind of support for this notion, which is we don't want a lot of what's happening now. We see the roots of authoritarianism taking hold. Now to the political violence. These acts of violence in Minnesota from a guy who, as I was saying, he's an anti-abortionist. He's a big Trump supporter, although that's, they're trying to spin that in the world of MAGA. That's kind of what happens. I understand that there's a lot of spin, but it seems particularly grotesque that you can take a bald-faced act of violence like this in any way sort of spin it when we're really just trying to understand the profile of the person who perpetrated it. In any case, so he does this, and I wonder, first, please remark on this, but also give me a window. My fear and anxieties associated with this being a trend, that this kind of political violence may become more commonplace. We've seen judges threatened. We know that they have increased security to judges and even prosecutors, many involved in the J6 stuff. And so, in a way, that's echoed in some of this, in my judgment. What do you think?
Well, yeah, Mark, I think the facts are the facts. You can't change the fact. You noted before I jumped in here, Congressman Steve Scalise at a congressional softball game, right? Shot. I mean, you've got, a former president then running for his second, non-consecutive term When was the last time we had a presidential candidate actually shot on the campaign trail, right? I mean, you've got Supreme Court justices, threatened at their homes, right? When did we last see that? So the facts are inescapable. And of course, the horrific tragedies over the weekend. I think I really appreciated your lead in, Mark, in terms of rhetoric. I think this, to me, these people are obviously bolstered by, and you rightly pointed out, it happens on both sides. The social media space did not exist 20 years ago, 15 years ago. That is 24/7 available to people in the doom scrolling mode. Cable news, again, not ubiquitous 20 years ago. That provides 24/7 fodder. I'm simply saying, when you had to only go out in the driveway in the morning and get your newspaper, and then go down to the coffee shop and talk to, 6 or 8 or 10 people, and then maybe catch the 5 or 6 p.m. news that night. Those were your only sources. Now you can be fed all kinds of stuff by the way, to your own niche perspective, 24/7. There's no getting around the fact that I think that has had a major impact in keeping the waters roiled at boiling point.
Yeah, of course, that seems indisputable. I'd also say, though, that there's a pinch of this, which is not just the media, and that is high-profile people who are generally revered and thought to operate in a world that is supposed to be informed by neutrality, I think of Supreme Court justices specifically, and instead of operating in that kind of neutrality, they make their loyalties clear. I mean, the Alito flag, the upside down flag that was flying above their home, the Clarence Thomas coalition that he has with at least one billionaire we know of. It's kind of billionaire sponsor of a Supreme Court justice. And so that's just one example. I think also you have high-profile politicians whose rhetoric has just changed. The rhetoric of battle, of combat, seems to inform so much of the political scape. So I think, of course, you're right. As I say, it seems demonstrably the case that you have these echo chambers that are just amping up everything. But I also worry that into those echo chambers come a lot of really incendiary rhetoric. We're just hearing it way more than we used to hear.
Yeah, and to be fair, Mark, if we were to go through those social media sites and those cable news channels, to be fair, we do hear it from both sides. I mean, it is. The level of just nonstop anger. People used to sort of peak, you know what I mean? They'd modulate and, well, you have to be frustrated, and then you'd have this peak. It just seems to be, even amongst political leaders, and the challenge, the chicken and egg in this, Mark, is, well, did the sphere out there, the communication-wise, did that drive it? Or now political leaders have actual outlets that they didn't have 15, 20 years ago, right? To get this kind of attention, to get the number of followers, to get the number of likes. I mean, these things feed off each other, I guess is what I want to say. And it's difficult to know. I think the important thing, Mark, and I think you're getting to it, it's got to be tamped down on both sides. I mean, I think that has to start at the top. Whether it will or not, I don't know. And then it just has to be across the board. People saying, look, we can disagree, folks, but you cannot have firearms decide our discourse.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. We'll continue this. Sadly, I think that this isn't an isolated incident, and I suspect we'll have other opportunities to discuss it, because I do think it somewhat nuanced, certainly layered, and I look forward to those future conversations. For now, let's go to the Middle East. So Iran and Israel, maybe you can sort of set the picture for us. The development of nuclear armament capabilities on the part of Iran is something that we've known about. There was a treaty in place, Trump season 1, his first 4 years, where he tore up everything that Obama had Obama's signature on it, from the Paris Climate Accords to this Iran nuclear deal. He claimed it was the worst deal ever. I maintain he couldn't tell you one thing about the Iran nuclear deal. It was just his thing. In any case, we had no deal. The enrichment of plutonium and giving Iran nuclear capabilities and abilities to actually launch a weapon. That was a program that continued apace, it seems, and those warnings were echoed by others in the region, but certainly they were declared by Israel. So we come to this place, Gary, where Israel takes the offensive move to knock out their nukes. Now, the one thing I will say, and then I'll shut up, but I just kind of wanted to set the table for a second. The one thing I would say is there is a notion that Israel somehow can knock out their nuclear capability with these bombings. That's just not true. You know this as well. Israel would need the help of the United States, probably in the United States armaments, to really derail their nuclear program, wouldn't they?
Well, when it comes to these so-called, now this term has become nearly ubiquitous, the bunker buster bombs. What does that mean? Simply large enough warheads to be able to destroy facilities that are deep, deep underground. That's what it means. Israel has neither the bombs of that capability, nor does it have these so-called delivery systems. In other words, bombers. They are equipped with fighter jets, and they're very, very adept, as we saw last week in the use of those. But they do not have, for example, our B-2 long-range bombers that would deliver these kind of bombs. So the question sitting out there now, as you point out, Mark, is to quote-unquote finish the job. Israel, by the way, you've seen how widespread this is. They are absolutely intent on completely dismantling the Iranian capability to even do what they're doing now, which is deliver hundreds of ballistic missiles into Israel. So they can pretty much take care of all of those other objectives, and there's a much longer list, which we probably don't have time to go into. But the actual, dismantling, disabling of these deep underground nuclear capabilities, most experts believe would take a sortie or two from the United States. Is that going to happen? I think the answer right now is we don't know. There's some that believe when Israel finally gets to the end game and that's what's left, that Trump may well order that, but we don't know. We really don't. And I think that's something yet to be determined. But the importance of what's happening in the Middle East cannot be overstated. A lot of Iran's neighbors, as you know, have also quietly come to the defense of Israel. And these are Arab states, as you know, who are at least doing what the U.S. is doing, and that is assisting the Iron Shield over Israel in terms of, weapons that would be fired into Israel, particularly targeted at civilian areas. So that's where we are now. Is this going to end soon? Nobody thinks so. Are the talks with Iran off? It looks like absolutely. Is there going to be a regime change? Maybe at the very top. And, it's game on in the Middle East. And I don't mean that in a trite way at all. I mean, this has been building, as you know, Mark, for decades. And one thing we do know out of last week, and I think this is important to point out, people on both sides are going to argue over this, Iran nuclear deal that was on the table before. But when you have the International Atomic Energy people saying that Iran now, after 20 years, has clearly violated even international agreements, that is what is giving Israel the cover to do what they're doing.
I also should mention that at this moment in time, Israel has a foothold militarily that they didn't have before. Iran has been diminished militarily. The proxies, for example, don't exist in the ways they did. Like Syria is no longer, Assad is not there anymore. Hezbollah in Lebanon, no longer there and no longer relevant. I mean, they're still there, but they have been pounded as a result of this October 7th thing and the actions around October 7th. So it's an interesting moment that Israel, I suspect, with some confidence, I suspect they see this moment as a diminished Iran. By the way, diminished Iran by no means suggests that this is a walkover. This is a real war.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, here's the facts as we know them. Number one, it's estimated by most objective observers that Iran has about 2,000 ballistic missiles. So at least that's where they started. Now, last week, a lot of those sites were taken out. A lot of the stockpiles were hit. But they still have a lot, obviously, because they're coming in. Secondly, and this is from a strategic point of view, this is exceptionally important, that Israel controls the airspace over Iran. I mean, that is, from a strategic military point of view, they can fly over Tehran at will, apparently. And that cannot be overstated in terms of its impact on where this goes. And there's a lot of folks that believe that if Iran now had a nuclear device, even if they didn't detonate it itself, the notion has been that they never intended to do that. They intended to move one to a proxy or two and let them and their fingerprints be on it.
That's right. I mean, what Gary's just said is so key that, the idea was we're going to give a nuclear device to the Houthis. We're going to give a nuclear device to another surrogate. They would be the ones to actually fire it, detonate it, and the Iranian fingerprints wouldn't be on it. I'm really glad you mentioned it because it seems critical. This also just because we're talking about it. Champagne Wishes says, some of the best minds in concrete engineering are from Iran. Yes, it's hard to believe, but it's true. They came up with a process that uses quartz instead of the rock that is usually used. I don't know about that, but I do know that, and this is kind of what we were saying, that they built their nuclear program for this kind of scenario. They anticipated this narrative, so everything is way underground. That's why we were saying before, it's not going to be easy to derail it, no matter how much you bomb right now.
Yeah, and the thing about that, Mark, real quick, the thing about that that's important from an international objective perspective is Iran, of course, has claimed forever that this is just about enrichment for nuclear power facilities. Well, you don't enrich uranium, half a mile underground to fire up your nuclear,
reactors.
reactors, and you also don't keep international inspectors out if that's all you're doing. So that's where they've had an optics problem. That is the Iranians in their nuclear enrichment.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly, Tony, do you have the video? I want to play it for Gary in my last minute or so. The G7 video where Trump is talking about how he really wants to make it G8. He'd like to see Russia come into the G7. Here he is. This is just happening today. Go ahead.
Support and what intelligence support are you providing Israel?
We've always supported Israel. We have for a long period of time, strongly. And Israel's doing very well right now.
Why not have China at the G8? Why not have China here, the biggest economy in the world after the United States?
Well, it's not a bad idea. I don't mind that. If somebody wants to suggest China coming in, I think we suggest. But you want to have people that you can talk to. They don't talk to. Putin speaks to me. He doesn't speak to anybody else. He doesn't want to talk because he was very insulted when he got thrown out of the G8. As I would be, as you would be, as anybody would be. He was very insulted. And, I mean, he was thrown out by Trudeau, who convinced one or two people, along with Obama. He was thrown out, and he's not a happy person about it, I can tell you that. He basically doesn't even speak to the people that throw him out, and I agree with him. Go ahead.
And I agree with him. He made comments earlier that he felt Russia should be part of the G8. It's just so interesting. I always forget that part of the plot that he's just rolled over for Putin so many different times, and even in his public rhetoric, he seems to support Putin and Russia.
Yeah, well, let's be clear about a couple things. Number one, there's not a snowball's chance, and where that the Russians are getting back into the G7. Certainly not while the conflict with Ukraine's going on, and even afterwards. Okay, he was thrown out primarily because of the invasion and securing of Crimea. That was the crux issue. There was others, but the idea that the G7 are going to welcome with open arms either China or Russia with the existential threats that they pose clearly to the West, and even their own rhetoric has made clear, it's just not going to happen. And so, Trump, of course, obviously likes to have everybody believe that he could make deals, even with Martians. I mean, I'm just joking about that. But, I mean, he has this idea, well, I'll sit down and we'll cut a deal. Well, forget Putin being part of the G7 anytime soon. That's not going to happen.
Sylvain says the Russian economy is tiny. It was before their invasion of Ukraine, and it continues to be. Yeah, it's true. I mean, Russia's not an economic power per se, but it's interesting that they do have a hold on the American president. Last thing I'm going to ask you, because I know I'm kind of over time, is about, I'm going to double back to the raids, the ICE raids in Los Angeles. The original rhetoric from the Trump administration was, we're going to back off on these raids around hotels. We're going to back off on these raids at Home Depot. We're going to get back to kind of looking for the the violent criminals who are in this country illegally. Well, that hasn't been the case. They've actually increased raids in Los Angeles and continue to increase the ICE raids in places like the Fashion District, at Home Depot, at churches, at schools. I wonder if you could just game this out. They've also indicated there's going to be more of this, and in blue cities, democratically controlled cities.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Trump, real quick, Trump actually did say he wanted things increased in terms of border enforcement in those cities, specifically LA, Chicago, New York. And of course, those are the major population centers. So it's part of it's numerical as well as political. I think, the Trump team has been on solid optics ground politically, as long as they've kept their focus on the criminals, as you.
Oh, and we lost Gary. It's too bad. He's making a good point about the fact that the optics may be changing, is sort of what I was getting from that, right? That the optics were good when you said you were going after violent criminals, you were going after gang-affiliated illegals, all of those things poll well, right? But the minute you say, I'm going by, Maria's quinceañera to pick up a few illegals, I'm going to Home Depot to pick up some day workers, I'm going to the church to arrest some worshipers and deport them, I mean, everything starts to get a little bit more complicated. And here is what I would say to you. You'll remember, in Vietnam, the thing that changed the Vietnam War, pictures that came back from Vietnam, it was the first, they called it TV war, meaning people at home were watching and seeing what was happening on the battle. They saw the intractable nature of the whole thing. Of course, it became clear that government knew there was no winning a war in Vietnam. But the thing that really turned it was the fact that the people saw those images of Vietnam and they were shocked. And that grew a movement immediately and supercharged a movement, an anti-war movement that was effective and ultimately ended the war in Vietnam. Why do I mention that? Because the images of families being pulled apart, the images, cell phone video of kids being separated, people being zip-tied, thrown down to the ground unnecessarily, these things may play well to the base for Donald Trump's base, but most Americans who cared about the border policy, but they didn't want to see, Pedro and Miguel, who are working on tile at their home, they don't want to see them deported and they'll never see their family again. The brutality of it is in images that are now being distributed and are now going viral nationwide and worldwide. That will be a harder political image for this administration to deal with. So even as we were talking to Gary, and he was saying as long as they were talking about violent criminals and deporting those people who had gang affiliations, et cetera, they were kind of on high ground. But now that the immigration raids, roundups have taken on the reality, which is there's a tiny percentage of immigrants who are involved in gang-affiliated war of some kind. I'm talking about, street war, territorial wars, drugs, all of these kinds of violent crimes. They constitute such a small number that there's no way for you to service your big number of immigrants who are here illegally. I want to get rid of them. If you want to get rid of millions of people, you're going to have to go by Home Depot and churches and schools, and that's what they're doing. And so they're deporting a bunch of innocent, productive people, most of whom have jobs.
If you want to make that 3,000 person, however, is it 3,000 a month or whatever it is, quota, you're going to have to go after people that their only crime is being here without documents. I'm fascinated though by this notion of going after immigrants that are undocumented in so-called democratic power centers. And I don't know if you saw this.
Those are the words of the president. That's what Kim's talking about. Yeah.
In a few days ago, the president also said that he would ease up on immigration enforcement in certain industries, hospitality, I think he said agriculture. So it's clear that they understand now that this is having an economic impact. Big surprise, right? And so maybe that's why the flip. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
I want to, though, make a real distinction. This is kind of what I was saying to Gary, that the president has announced that. He made that pronouncement that he wants to back off on raids that involve hotel workers and agricultural workers. So he made that announcement, but that's not what's happening. So he is playing the propaganda of the moment. But I just told you, this administration is leaning in hard with the same kind of raids that they were doing prior. So even as Trump has said, look, you know, the hotels and the agriculture, we're not going to go near it, such obviously a vital part of the economy. They are. They still are. The ICE raids are happening in the same manner as they were last week as we begin a new week.
You know what's interesting is that in my house, I have kids. And so you don't think of how this impacts them. I have an 11-year-old white child who comes to me over the weekend and says, Mom, if ICE comes to my school, do you want me to defend the kids that they're coming after? Do you want me to stand up for my friends? Or what do you want me to do? Because we always say that you should try to protect people, right? And I think this is affecting everyone, not just the people that are here without documents, but the people who are concerned about them. And it doesn't matter your age.
And that's a great story, and it's so sweet and so
seeps inside the psyche of every American.
Sure. And imagine if there are other Latino kids there. I mean, it does, I think, bear mentioning that, you know, there are other illegals besides Latinos, but we're not scooping up other other illegals in general in the kinds of ways we are here. Now, what we are doing as a nation is we're stopping brilliant scientists at immigration and customs checkpoints. I'm thinking of the Russian scientist and researcher. She came into the country with those 4 frog embryos that weren't declared. Yeah. Her research associate, actually the head of her research program, asked her to bring them. She brings them in. She's a distinguished researcher, I think at Harvard. One of the top research scientists in the world. You detain her, you send her to Louisiana in some immigration detention facility. It's outrageous. And she spends 2 weeks there. Finally, she's released back into, again, a legal fight that she'll have to pursue. But so it is true that they are, you know, pulling over, if you will, those who aren't just Latino, but most of the dragnet stuff where they go in heavy, they're going into the barrios, man. They're going into Las Calles. Or is it Los Calles? I never know what the, anybody? No Spanish speakers here? All right. I'm deeply concerned about the tenor of all of this.
Yeah.
And a flawed policy. And then, as you say, there are reverberations all the way down the line.
Yep, so. Absolutely.
All right. I want to get to Bill, and I don't know if you want to try. Do you want to try to? He's scheduled for 15 after the hour. Probably give you time to give us a couple of updates on stories. You want to do that before we get to Bill Black?
Oh, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I am. I'd love to do that. I also want to just take a quick sip of the in our Mark Thompson Show mug. It's getmarkmerch.com, I think. It's under all the videos, and this is a we could try ignoring it, sir mug, which is
we could try ignoring it, sir.
Yeah, the but more than anything, it's what's in the mug. It's Coachella Valley. Oh, look at Tony's got. Now this is the new merch set. I've got to get Courtney on here. This is our new overpriced merch site, which you will love. Yes, we get none of this money, by the way. It's just kind of a fun way to represent.
Sure.
I think we get almost literally nothing. Like I get like $2.76 every time somebody spends it. But that's not the point. It's a fun thing. And Courtney got a lot of these sort of fun items that she's put in there. So like like the kitchen.
I love the apron. The apron's great. Love it.
And you can see their jackets, their pajamas. I mean, they're
Are those
pajama
boxer
bottoms
shorts?
that have the
Pajama shorts. Okay.
What? Yeah, I know.
I
You
might
got to
need
go to
some
bed
Mark
with us on the
Thompson.
show. Go to bed with all of us.
I need some Thompson jammies. That's great.
I maybe for Christmas we'll hook you up with some Thompson jammies.
Mhm.
Yeah. But again, not priced to move. Everything's expensive. I don't know why. I said to Courtney, why is it? She said, I don't set the prices. I don't know how to help with that. So it's
Great.
La Calle. Thank you very much, Adam Cohen, for La Calle. So Las Calles. So we Las Calles, the streets. No Mark Thompson thongs? No, not yet. I mean, again, it's a I don't know.
Ooh,
wild idea, but it just might work.
I don't think it would work. Look at
By
the pink hats, though. I
thongs, do you
love
mean
those.
flip-flops, or do you mean, you know?
I think the pink hat, I have to say, I love. I really do. I think I could rock a pink hat. And by the way, that's kind of what hats are going for now, so that's not wildly overpriced. But anyway, it's this coffee that I'm drinking is out of the mug that is also available somewhere on the site. The mug is very old school, just to go with the mug. But more than anything, it's got Coachella Valley coffee in it. So check out Coachella Valley Coffee. They're a boutique roastery. And again, I'll remind you, they have an all-organic product, coffees and teas from women-owned businesses that are given seed money across Latin America, across Africa. These are the businesses that Coachella Valley Coffee has helped to build. And Cliff has said, and he said it here on the show, he said, I used to give the money to men and women across Latin America and Africa, but the men never built the business. They just used the money. The women actually built these robust coffee farms. So check out their product, their tasting notes on everything, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. You get 10% off everything with our user code, MARKT. Again, the discount code is MARKT. Use it together, no spaces, as you check out. And this is fresh crop. This is not discounted beans. You'll see a lot of cheap beans on the internet. They've been lying around for months. That's why they're discounted. This is all fresh, and all of their beans hand roasted. And Kim loves the tea.
Mm-hmm.
I love the tea as well. I'm just such a coffee addict that I go with the coffee. But it's a very special product. They're very special people. Go to their website and use our discount code and get in on the dreaminess. Good stuff. All right. Well, Kim, now I've done essentially now you have 4 minutes to do the news before I got to talk to Bill.
Okay, let's do it.
You want to try that? Okay.
Wiki, let's make it happen.
All right. Kim's news, and then the distinguished Bill Black as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Federal murder and stalking charges are being filed against the Minnesota man accused of killing a state lawmaker and her husband. Acting U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson says Vance Belter also visited the homes of two other Democratic lawmakers with the intention of harming them. One was not home, and he was scared off by police at another home. Earlier today, Minnesota officials said they would pursue first-degree murder charges in this case. This man is due in federal court this hour. President Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney are meeting on the sidelines of the G7 summit today in Alberta. The two nations have been working on hammering out some sort of trade agreement in the face of tariffs imposed by Trump. Meanwhile, Trump thinks Russia should be part of the current G7 summit. While speaking about trade, he said the group of international leaders used to be called the G8 before President Obama worked to kick Russia out. He said there would be no war in Ukraine if Russia was still in this group. Trump's also directing his administration to use every resource possible on mass deportation efforts. He mentioned increasing enforcement actions in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and other cities he considers the core of Democrat power. Trump making the announcement a day after the No Kings protests against his policies were held in major cities and small towns across America. There is a hearing today in Boston federal court over Trump's orders to block Harvard from enrolling international students. Harvard asking the court to grant an order allowing student visa holders to enter the country to study while this legal battle continues. The Trump administration is asking the court to reject Harvard's request and deny the school any relief. Israel says Iran has launched more than 300 missiles at the country and counting since Friday. The Israeli military says most of those were intercepted by air defense systems, but some 24 Israelis have been killed so far as Iranian missiles made it through the defenses. Meanwhile, Israel is issuing an evacuation order for residents in northwest Tehran. In a posting on X this morning, an IDF spokesperson said in the coming hours, the IDF will operate in the area in line with recent actions across Tehran to attack military facilities belonging to the Iran regime. And again, the two countries have been exchanging deadly strikes for at least 4 days.
I mean, the call for that evacuation, I think, just reminds us that this isn't a hit it and quit it thing with Israel. It's not like a bomb them, knock them off stride, and we're done. This is a real effort on their part. I'm sure at regime change, even though they're not saying that, they want the people of Iran to step up and change the regime, is what Netanyahu's saying. But it's definitely trying to catch Iran in a compromised state militarily and from an alliance standpoint. For example, they don't have Syria anymore. They don't have Hezbollah in Lebanon anymore in any kind of really relevant way. And so, and they've been diminished by a lot of their back and forth during the October 7th exchanges. So it's a moment in time where Israel felt they could exploit a little bit of this softness. I'm just speaking about the sort of the military realities and the geopolitical realities, but they may have initiated and kicked off a series of events that could be very destabilizing and concerning.
Thanks,
Certainly
Tony.
concerning.
That's a really good picture. Appreciate that. That's a look at, what's happening there with the launching of missiles and the protection. Former New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez set to report to federal prison Tuesday. Menendez, who is appealing, was found guilty, sentenced to 11 years in prison for accepting cash, gold bars, and a Mercedes, along with acting as a foreign agent for Egypt. His wife, Nadine, was also found guilty in the scheme and will be sentenced in September after her June sentencing was moved so she could attend her daughter's wedding.
I mean, as prize packages go, that's pretty significant, though. Like, they don't, I'm just saying, right? The Mercedes, gold bars, cash.
Are you saying
that's
that
better than anything on The Price is Right?
You think that would have moved you to be a foreign agent for Egypt as well?
I'm pure of heart, as you know, Kim, but I'm also I'm open to it. I'll take a meeting. I'll take a meeting on it.
The gold bars make it hard to look away.
Party of four.
Yeah, maybe you just spread it out among my entire family, and it will be less known. I mean, I like the look of gold bars. I will say that. But I don't like the look of prison bars. So, the illegality might have been cautioning to me.
Purdue Pharma agreeing to a $7.4 billion settlement for its role in the nationwide opioid crisis. 55 states and territories accuse the company behind OxyContin of fueling the nationwide epidemic by aggressively marketing its products. According to the CDC, there have been more than 850,000 opioid-related overdose deaths in the United States since 1999. Money from this settlement will go to state and local governments, individuals, and Native American tribes as well. And lastly, before we get to Dr. Black, how about a phone? Time for a new phone for you, Mark? There's a Trump phone coming up. The Trump
now you're talking.
Yeah. The Trump organization has announced a mobile phone service and smartphone branded with the president's name, apparently an effort to appeal to conservative consumers
I
with the
see.
promises of
Oh, I'm sorry. A major announcement. Go
with the
ahead.
promises of phones made in America.
I've never seen anything like it.
That's what I want.
It'll
Yeah.
set you back about $500. The Trump branded smartphone will be
Wow.
available come September, with the
Mhm.
network offering a $47.45 a month subscription plan. There you see the Trump phone. It's got the big
What-
T on the
no,
back.
the price. Did you hear what Kim said? Tell everybody the price again.
It's a $500 phone.
Right.
So you
No,
buy
but the monthly is what?
and the monthly is $47.45.
There you go. It's 47.
Get it? $47.45.
Yeah.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. Well, that's for sure.
Get your Trump phones in September. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
They match. Are they gold?
They are.
Yeah, they match your shoes.
What
Yeah,
other
the
color
Trump
would they be,
shoes.
Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There's only one color in Trump land.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Use Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, can I trade in my Obama phone? Will they do that, or is it just straight up? I got to buy the new phone. Is there any mention?
Buy the new phone. No Obama.
My Biden phone. My
Actually,
Biden phone.
it
I can't
says-
understand anything that anybody is saying. See, that's a play on the fact that okay.
You can bring your own phone. So yes, technically you can use your Obama phone on the Trump
Oh,
plan.
I can't. It's just the 47 plan, the all-American performance, everyday price. Look at that. Yeah. Boy, they really play the patriotism card, those guys. Good for them. I have a distinguished guest, so if we are just about finished, I will move on. Thanks for being here, everybody. I will ask you, if you would please, to smash the like button.
Smashed it
That
with
helps
your
us
iron rod.
in the YouTube algorithm, and that's where our show is live every day. We're 2 to 4 in the East. What up, East Coast? And 11 to 1 in the West. And it is such a pleasure to have everybody here live all the time. Appreciate those of you who are watching live, though, hitting the thumbs up. And if you're watching in delay on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, too. Again, it just helps us in the mathematics of YouTube. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
here he is, the professor of economics and law from University of Missouri in Kansas City. He wrote the book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. Distinguished scholar in residence for financial regulation at the University of Minnesota School of Law. And he teaches a class in crypto, in fintech, in digital currencies. And I'm hoping we can get into a little bit of that. Our time is limited, but we always love having, I should say, the distinguished Bill Black with us. Hello, sir.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great to have you in the mix. I've tried in various ways to discuss one of the greatest grifts in American history that's going on with this administration, because it does involve your area of expertise and indeed what you teach a class in, and that's crypto. And I wonder if you can explain why crypto is such a perfect grift. It's such a perfect place to funnel money into those who are in positions of power. And just, again, more basically, break out for us the meme coins, the stable coins, without getting too complicated. I may interrupt you here and there to show off that I know a little something about this too, but you teach a class in it, and it really does seem as though it's the game changer in terms of corruption that can be openly pursued by an administration.
Okay, so that probably is the biggest significance. There's no there is the short version of it. But that means that the way you make money is by basically looting your supporters, right? And that's what a rug pull is. I get you to invest at this wildly inflated price that I create as an alleged market price through very shallow transactions. And then the price goes like a hockey stick.
And by the way, when you say get me to invest in, and this is
by
the key.
Buying the coin.
Yeah,
or
it's nothing. It's just a thing. It's like a collectible coin, but it's not even a real coin.
Yes. Now that's one.
I see. Yeah.
It isn't one thing. there are a bunch of things, but all of them have the feature that there's no there.
So,
but yes,
so
the
just
one
to be
you're
clear,
talking
again,
about
it's
just like it isn't even a physical coin, right? It's just a digital representation of a picture of something, which of course costs essentially nothing to produce. So how do we get a fake price? We get a fake price because we reserve the great bulk of these coins for ourselves, and then we issue them. And then people who are hoping that there'll be this spike of appreciation, because there is for a very brief time, will come in and buy. And that will establish the new market price, of say $100. At which point we sell, and we use hypervelocity trading type tools to sell in small fractions of a second. And that's called a rug pull, because there ain't no there at that point. The price will collapse. And this kind of stuff, right, is a very old scheme. It's called pump and dump, right, with stocks. And it's existed in the United States since before there was a United States, basically. These are the blue sky laws that people may have heard of, state anti-fraud laws, because as one judge phrased it, they promise you everything, including the blue sky type of thing. But these grifts, what you need is a hook. You need somebody with a name. So most of these grifts are personalities on various portals in the modern era, right? Influencers. If we can get an influencer, then they can get some movement, and there are 2 million people. Again, you only need it for literally seconds, where they buy these coins and then you dump. And the other groups that you use is politicians. And so this was made infamous recently by the head of a state in Argentina. It was actually his second time that he did this grift, but pretended the second time that he still had no idea that such a thing could happen. And such, and allegedly his wife is involved as well. And this is a purer than pure libertarian. Afuera, afuera, afuera. All the rules, all the laws have to be gone, outside, gone, type of thing.
And that was in Argentina, you're saying?
That was in Argentina, and he's the guy, of course, that gave the chainsaw to Musk. Where you've seen those scenes where Musk is obviously high as a kite, and thank God isn't using a chainsaw that's actually running. He would have killed half the people around him with that insanity. So those coins are one form. A similar thing to that was, you remember all the rage probably with NFTs when they first came out, non-fungible tokens. Now, fungible means they're not allegedly identical, but they're just created by AI, and they just tweak a slightly different brush stroke, which isn't even a brush stroke, it's a digital stroke.
Sure.
And then yours is unique, but it's just a stupid picture. I mean, there's no even art in it.
But there was tremendous demand. I mean, those things were going for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right. For 3 months
right.
In that case, because celebrities are incredibly stupid about such things. And so a grift can last longer among people that have immense amounts of money and nothing to do it with. And, it became the thing in parties and such. You could only come if you had one of these stupid monkeys.
That's right. No, the boat shop or whatever it was there. Yeah, with the monkeys, what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that too is a variety of the scheme.
So you're saying that's just another iteration of the same scheme, is what you're saying.
Those are, But there are other varieties where you actually create a transaction. A device could do a transaction. Bitcoin is obviously the most famous, but there are a number of competitors. Those things, of course, you don't see people buying lunch with Bitcoins for an obvious reason. It takes too long to clear the transaction. So, you would have eaten your meal and be gone before the thing would necessarily clear, especially if there's a lot of Bitcoin activity, which happens whenever the prices rise or fall sharply. But it also costs something on the order originally of 10,000 times what it cost Visa to close a transaction.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, and that's the energy. That cost is in the form of energy usage for really stupid purpose. We use all of this sophisticated microprocessor time not to solve a real problem. Like, NASA could actually use processing time to do interesting stuff in physics. This is just finding a random number. And there's no strategy to it. It's just all brute force. So there's no gain to the world from it. So you don't spend Bitcoins because what you're doing is hoping the price will rise, right? It would be stupid to spend your Bitcoins even apart from the transaction costs and buying a sandwich. So that was out there. It was supposed to become the brave new world of tech. And it, of course, hasn't, but it has made a number of people wealthy.
Well, let me just ask you about this, because it's a big part of our culture now, and certainly our political culture now, informed by a lot of this, with Trump having actually put American assets into a digital coin reserve. I mean, we're buying a bunch of this stuff that doesn't exist. It's just a dumping of taxpayer money into this less than legitimate, is what it sounds like you're saying or implying, area of monetary stuff, things related to money, but I don't, again, it's sort of amorphous. But isn't it the case that Bitcoin is used transactionally in some places, that there are ways in which, and I guess you're going to get to that because that's probably the grift, but where you have a legitimizing, if you will, of the digital coin, because it is used, at least certain kinds of coins. There's so many, there's Solana and all of these other different ones. But the Bitcoin, just to use it as an example, seems to have established itself as something of a transactional currency, at least in some cases.
Yes. And so for really big transactions, the fee, while it's, higher, is trivial. If you're moving millions of dollars, the transaction cost is very small. So when you want more anonymity from governments that might be looking, and, you can imagine some legitimate circumstances, but it mostly means because you're doing something sleazy, then yes, that is used. Then you have stable coins, which we should have a whole show on, which are not stable. The first big stable coin lasted all of about 15 months. But this is another thing, and this is very Silicon Valley. And again, we lived there for 20 years. They always do manifestos. And these manifestos purport to be sophisticated economically. And you go, oh, dear God.
Because the stable coin is supposed to be linked to a stable currency. And so you're saying that's kind of covered in their manifesto.
Typically to a basket, sometimes to a particular one. But in that case, why not just have the currency?
That's so old school, Doctor. I'm not surprised. Get with it, Doctor. Get with it, Professor. Come on now.
Yeah. I call myself Bill, by the way.
Whatever. I'm just saying, get with it, Professor.
Polite is fine by me.
Professor Bill, how dare you, with all of your degrees, suggest that we just deal with an actual currency instead of a digital currency?
But let me come back to your point.
All right.
So, because this is only the beginning of the scam. So, first, how did we end up with various crypto? Because we bring prosecutions. And they are proceeds of the fraud. So the United States actually has a bunch of crypto, right? And indeed, Trump is screaming, how dare prior administrations, when they got it, they would sell it. They should have held it. Now, again, this would be an entire program, but the key is getting people to hold. And indeed, there's weird stuff in this, in how this works, but HODL, is that a familiar acronym? It's not actually an acronym.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So one guy was, they're always telling each other, hold, 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 hold. Don't sell as the price is declining, because then it will collapse. And, you know, they're there will really hurt. So if we just all hold, regardless of the circumstances, it'll be great. So one guy was typing fast, and like all of us, he transposed, you know, on the keyboard, and it came out HODL instead of hold.
Oh my God, that's wild. I didn't know that.
So now if you go to crypto conferences, they have HODL hats. You know, your merch, you could get a whole bunch of crypto merch. Yeah. And HODL is one of the favorites. And now they've created an acronym, hold on for dear life.
I see.
To make HODL sort of make sense.
And the reason that Trump had said a hold is because the value of his crypto assets goes down if
his
there's
donors,
a big sell.
And his donors, all the big donors. So they want all the message being hold, 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 hold. Also, like his SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Corp, massively overpriced. Hold, 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 hold. Don't sell. Because if you sell, the market dynamics expose the fraud. So all of these guys are into hodling, you know, big time. There were even cartoons on the web with hodl houses and things like that.
But we have now a czar, a crypto czar, this David Sachs, who...
Yeah, so things are about to get much worse. So the two things that will inflate massively the price of worthless crypto stuff, otherwise worthless crypto stuff, are holding. And now we're going to have massive holding, right? Where this government entity ain't going to sell no matter what happens. So as it eventually the scam occurs and we lose all our money in our wealth fund, we'll just sit there and hold and hold and hold, and we'll be the foolest fool in the market. And so we'll suffer complete losses on that. But it gets worse. Because what's better than holding? Buying. And not with our money, but other people's money. Because if they buy, the value of my portfolio of crypto goes up. And I don't have to take any additional risk buying this stuff. But wait, there's more. Trump is also creating massive deficits, right? But if the price of crypto is expanding massively and he changes the accounting to say we should recognize the market value of our sovereign wealth fund, the deficit will disappear too.
So say the last part again.
If we hyperinflate the market price, change the accounting rules, and say we will now value this asset at its market price, the deficit will also disappear.
Yeah, I just want people to hear that its impact on the deficit is illusory. The whole thing is kind of an illusion.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's all scam.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see a
but as long as we
legitimized.
buy, and the United States can buy, unbelievable amounts of crypto.
And there's been less and less in the way of regulation. There was crypto regulation under prior administrations, but that regulation has been removed under this administration.
Yeah, so the pattern was very complex again, but there was no effective regulation. And the SEC was losing most of the court actions because the judiciary is very hostile to regulation. Plus, 18 Senate Democrats voted with the Republicans just, very recently to keep and expand crypto because these are massive donors.
They're donors. It really, that last thing that Bill Black is saying should really underscore how the calls are coming from inside the House. You know, that the terror is already there within the system. This broken political system, awash in money, can be taken advantage of by all of these wealthy donors. And this is the newest way, this world of crypto. As you say, in a way, it's just another iteration of a kind of corruption that's always existed since the beginning of time. It has really been permitted since Citizens United and all this and all the rest. What is your? I'm just kind of passing on stuff that I'm seeing in the chat, comments and questions, and one is about here. I'll just CC Ryder says, ask Dr. Black if he thinks there is one safe, legitimate crypto exchange, given the Sam Bankman-Fried conviction. Yeah, I mean, are all the exchanges similarly exposed the way the Bankman-Fried was? I mean, that exposed to that kind of manipulation and corruption?
No, but all of them are vulnerable. So here's what happens. I was a banking regulator for, considerable time. You're sitting there with a crypto exchange. You have allegedly $10 billion in assets, right, at the supposed market price. And you're thinking, I'm a lot brighter than a banker. Bankers are old and dumb and, sort of Republican mossbacks and such. I'm a modern whiz kid type of thing. Bankers have to pay interest to get their money, right? Bankers are subject to all kinds of regulation. Bankers have taxes and fees. I got none of this. This is brilliant. I'll make a fortune. I'll become a banker. Because I know at any given time, the float on this money, that I only need maybe 1 in 20 bucks, right? Of these alleged bucks. So they start lending. And they go, well, it's easy to make money. I've got all these advantages compared to bankers that I've just explained. So I'll make a fortune. But of course, they're morons. And they don't know how to do banking. They don't know how to lend. And pretty quickly, they get in trouble. So then they go to the next scam. And the next scam, well, there are many varieties of how you cover up these things, but that's when you get into the really big frauds and the massive losses. But here's the other thing. Exchanges are enormous targets for people who can break into the systems. And North Korea really does, this isn't fiction, North Korea really does have a whole section of very creative, very bright people that help them break into these. And they put people in to the business sector to get the passwords as well. And they provide the information to the intelligence services. So it is estimated that this is actually, along with counterfeiting, the leading source of foreign reserves for North Korea.
Wow, that's extraordinary. So those foreign reserves, you're saying, were really jacked from accounts that were hacked by their people.
Yes. And again, for 20 plus years, they've been some of the world's most sophisticated counterfeiters, particularly of the US $100 bill.
Wasn't there a thing that was surrounding the digital currency and even the NFT world that was associated with blockchain permanence? And without getting too deep into it, but that blockchain stuff was supposed to be kind of a record of exchange, of transactions. So you could look at the blockchain and you'd see the provenance of everything. You could see like the trail of digital breadcrumbs back to everybody involved in the transaction. Wouldn't that make it, if that's true, more exposed to be able to see the kind of fraud, to be able to see bad actors in the blockchain world?
And a proponent of Bitcoin would make exactly that argument. The problem, and there's a little bit of truth to it, but overwhelmingly it's not true. And the problem is you can hold it anonymously, right? So yes, there's a chain that says XYZQQQQ transferred to Z XXX, but that doesn't tell me anything Sometimes people are able to figure it out by timing transactions, right? That it
I
just
see. You
fits
can
too
tie it to an identity.
precisely
Yeah.
that's almost certainly this particular party. But no, even U.S. intelligence services in general, we don't think are able to break that form of the cryptology.
Ask Dr. Bill, why do overseas romance scammers ask their marks to buy crypto for them?
For precisely what we just explained, that you can move it secretly to your account, and there's the genius of this from a fraudster standpoint is there's nobody to sue. There is no Bitcoin group, right? Nobody owns it. That's in fact DeFi.
Right.
And
tell everybody
and they mean that in both senses. So this is decentralized finance, but they also like the homonym that it means defy all rules. And again, this is a world of manifestos of ultra libertarian thought and how they're immensely superior grifters. I'm sorry, they're immensely superior to all the normies.
But you're saying defiance is sort of one of the cornerstones of their, like they want to shake up the space type thing. Here's a story for you. Phineas says, I like the guy in the UK that lost over $100 million in Bitcoin and his girlfriend threw it out. So he bought the junkyard to find the hard drive. I guess I would for $100 million.
Yeah, so he first tried to get an order that the junkyard do the search for him. He would pay for the search, and so that's his fallback. But it does bring up a serious point, especially as people get older, right? You have to remember your code.
Yeah.
And they want you to pick a code that is not easy to remember, right? So if you lose that piece of paper that you wrote it down, and this is not a small problem. This is an enormous problem. Indeed, there's a whole industry of people that try to help you figure out if you did actually pick a number. You know, they try to find everything out about you and figure out. Maybe,
that's fascinating. It's almost like a psychological profile on the password that you might choose.
Yes,
that's wild.
Exactly right.
I didn't know that. That's great. Penny is asking, how do they get their, quote, money out of the crypto?
First, you don't, right?
If you have any money left in it.
A lot of these crypto billionaires, they're crypto billionaires on paper, but if they ever tried to sell it, if they were, really big players, it might well start the cascade that would harm it. And again, that really explains the politics, right? So you got all these people that are super rich. What can they do that is only chump change? Well, political contributions from their perspective are chump change. They're huge from a politician's perspective. Again, as a financial regulator, my line was the highest return on assets is always a political contribution.
Wow. That just does. Well, look at Elon Musk. I mean, up until 10 days ago, he was getting everything he wanted. And, he still might be able to crawl back into the good graces of Trump. It seems like, I'm predicting that they'll be back dancing on the yellow brick road or the gold-plated road soon.
That's the advantage of slime. Your path back is,
it's pretty
very low friction.
Yeah, there you go. I've got to wrap up just our limited time, but this has been great. I've limited our conversation to this crypto world, even though you're such a brilliant economist and your window on everything is so clear. I really would love to look through it with you again, and maybe we'll move to something else. But I really today wanted to exploit the digital thing, because it just seems as though that digital world is picking up so much momentum. It is massive grift, and it even had a presence at this military parade. Over the weekend, yes. Bill, they had there were sponsors. Coinbase is one of the sponsors of it, and that's just a crypto exchange, right?
And soldiers were handing out, swag with those names on it. There is, exploit was exactly the right word. That is the operative word of the day. They exploit human weakness, and it pays really handsomely.
And this is only the beginning, so we will see. Again, I'll mention Bill's book, and it's just he does all of this research and continues to be a vibrant force for exposing those things that are the realities. The best way to rob a bank is to own one, is the book. We have a picture of it there. How corporate executives and politicians looted the S&L industry. And I'll remind you that Bill Black was the whistleblower, federal whistleblower, involved in that S&L crisis. I'd love to do a separate conversation about that. So, talk about a guy with granular knowledge. So can we backburner that and do that the next time, maybe?
Great with me.
All right, good stuff. Bill Black, everybody. Thanks, Bill. Cheers. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That guy, you could talk to him for the entire week. He's just so deep with so much knowledge, Thanks, everybody, for your comments. Thanks, everybody, for your questions. Always helpful, and it's interesting to see that, from what I could tell from our chat, and I'm just glancing over when I could, that not too many people involved in the digital world.
No?
No, I didn't see a lot of people who are holding digital currency. A great guest says, La Macromeca.
Did you mention that Trump is reporting that he's made more than $600 million from crypto, golf, and licensing fees?
Well, I didn't mention that, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah.
That's fun.
But Bill's kind of explained to you, how it happens with the rug pull and all the rest. But Trump reporting more than $600 million in income from crypto, golf clubs, licensing, and other ventures. This is a public financial disclosure report that was released on Friday. And again, I would suggest to you, and you'll pardon me for being a bit cynical, but this only is his public declaration. I'm guessing that there are other holdings. And of course, we know of the Trump held platform on which crypto is exchanged. That's the World Liberty. It's done with the son of the Middle East negotiator, who is a real estate mogul and pal of Donald Trump's. Again, I remind you that that's the guy who's negotiating everything. He's negotiating Middle East. He's negotiating Russia, Ukraine. This guy who, background in negotiation? No, background in real estate negotiation. He's a real estate mogul. That's the guy who's navigating all the sensitive issues around the Middle East and around Russia and Ukraine. Google it. That's what's happening. Not Marco Rubio.
Mr. Witkoff.
Witkoff, exactly. And his son owns the platform with the Trump administration on which digital currency is traded. Liberty, World Liberty, I think it's called.
I wonder if you have to pay taxes on monies gained from your crypto, or if you only have to pay taxes if you cash out your crypto, but if you hold it, you never have to pay taxes, and it makes it look like you're a billionaire when really you just have money sitting in crypto.
Oh, that's exactly, and Bill saying that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like stocks on one level, but stocks are actually a piece of a real company.
Right.
You have a piece of a company when you own stocks. When you own crypto, you have a piece of this thing that is, there's no there, as Bill was saying. And the thing about those meme coins, the Trump meme coins, is that they're just digital collectibles. They're like a Kobe Bryant autographed Laker jersey, in that you could buy as much with this Kobe Bryant Laker jersey as you can buy with this digital meme. The difference is, and the similarity is, that people go, oh, that's of value, and there's demand for that jersey, and that might drive the value up. But there's no intrinsic value. You can't buy anything with the Kobe Bryant jersey. You can't go into Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee with the jersey.
It's tangible. At least you can hold it in your hand and it's a thing.
Sure, you can hang it up on your wall, but I guess what I'm trying to talk about is from the standpoint of its value. It's based on demand, right? And so that's where the pump and dump part, as I understand it, comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's you create the demand for the jersey, right? There are a limited number of the jerseys, and as a result, it's the value, if you will, the value of the jersey goes up. Substitute meme coin for jersey, and that's what you have.
Yeah.
This worthless thing, I'm going to assign a market value to, and then create the demand, which is also artificial. It's just a place where political favors are being exchanged by buying a lot of your meme coin, Mr. President. I'm hoping you'll pay attention to me. And indeed, he did. He had a whole dinner with the top meme coin purchasers in attendance. So you get something for your millions and millions of dollars that run up the cost of his meme coin. So I think that's more or less right, isn't it, Bill Black? I think I more or less have it.
You got it, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. But and Trump makes money on each transaction involving his meme coin. He also makes money on every transaction on that platform, that World Liberty. That they are like the Charles Schwab or Coinbase or Crypto.com of that world. So they make money on that.
Coming and going, he's making the money.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a little bit on the crypto world. And since it's going to be so much a part of our future, so glad that Bill Black could join us, and he'll be back again to
The Mark Thompson Show,
to discuss it another time. Yeah, you're right. He created a competition for the dinner. That's right. There was a competition for the
biggest investor.
Biggest investor. Dinner for schmucks, says Uncle Ross. I just remember they weren't happy. Remember we did that story. They weren't happy with the food. They weren't happy with the lack of access to Trump, all of those things. No one was happy at that dinner. It was really something. Hey, I want to mention something. I should have mentioned it long ago. It's the end of the show. I can't believe it's taken me this long to mention it. But I do want to mention, because many of you are asking, when is the next virtual meetup? We've gone the whole year without one. How about a June swoon meetup? It is June swoon, baby. We are bringing it to June swoon. And let me tell you what will happen, because this really is a limited...
What can you tell us about the scene?
I'll tell you now, Larry. It's June swoon. It's a virtual meetup from wherever you are. Thursday, June 26th, 6:30 to 8:30 at night on the West Coast. So if you're on the East Coast, that's 9:30 to what is that? 11:30 on the West Coast, on the East Coast. So West Coast 6:30 to 8:30, East Coast 8:30 to 11:30, and then all of your other time zones, you can figure them out. 2 hours of swooning with special guests. I love swooning with special guests. We will have them for you, and I'll start to release their names. If you want to be part of this June swoon exclusive event, it is exclusive. A lot of people say exclusive. It's not exclusive. This is exclusive. A $50 donation to PayPal. It is a fundraiser for the show. The PayPal link is under all our videos and on our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. Once you've donated the $50 and you've locked up the spot, please put June swoon with your donation, or meetup with your donation. There'll be a place on PayPal where you can actually write that in. And also RSVP to mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Do not RSVP until you've done the PayPal part. This helps us make sure that we watch the PayPal donations, and we make sure that everybody who is paid their $50 to lock up a seat is guaranteed a seat. So mtsmeetup@gmail.com after you've done it. And note, June swoon with your donation on PayPal. Should be a really great event. Again, it's 2 hours. It'll feature a lot of people who you know, and some people who are not normally on the platform. That is to say, they're not here a lot as guests. But now you see, once you mention coin, we have the bots. And so... Kim, you can go nuts on the bots in there.
Sorry, I was working the June swoon thing.
Yeah, so you can. I'm sorry, everybody in the. So those of you who are just listening or whatever, it is troll land in.
I'm sorry.
The world of meme coins. So
I'm on it, everybody. I'm on it.
They've temporarily kind of taken us over.
That happened a couple days ago to us too. These Maury people, crazy.
Yeah, they've got you in their sights, Kim. So
they do.
Let's step it up, Kim. I don't want to.
I blame you.
Maybe it's my fault. I don't know. All right. I did want to mention one thing that's unrelated to much, and you're not going to hear it. I don't think I'm on
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mpox. That's the monkeypox virus. It is surging in Sierra Leone.
Oh no.
It is true that the nationwide Mpox outbreak is something that health officials are concerned with. Infections across the African continent are surpassing the totals seen last year. Health authorities in Sierra Leone, that's in West Africa, are having to rework the way they were treating people. They were treating people in their homes. They're trying to kind of isolate them, and that didn't work. And now the virus is spread quickly through close contact, and the infections are skyrocketing, spreading to all 16 regions in Sierra Leone, including Freetown, the capital. The government has now set up multiple centers to isolate and treat patients, but the centers are running out of beds. They only have a fraction of the vaccines they need. Why do I mention it? Because it relates, as you might imagine, to USAID. When the USAID funding stopped, the vaccination program stopped. The Africa CDC and the World Health Organization decided last week to keep in place the Mpox emergency declaration made for Africa last year. The global risk is high. The global risk to other countries is high. Liberia, a neighboring country, is showing a rise in infections there. I just want to remind you of this because I don't think it's getting any media oxygen whatsoever. And this region in Africa is an incubation center for what could be a deadly pandemic. So, once again, American policy in Africa, Trump policy, the dismantling of USAID, has a hand in all of this. So it's worth focusing on for a moment. Meantime, in this country, RFK Jr., as you know, is dismantling any vaccine programs and a lot of public health programs and disease prevention programs associated with vaccines. It's definitely a tricky time health-wise, worldwide. So that's the latest from Sierra Leone, and it's not good. So,
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
let me check on a couple of comments on the meetup. Luis says, I pay $100 if the meetup is at Tony's Arcade. I mean his house.
He has a party house. He could have a meetup there.
He could.
I
I
might have
like
a
a
camera
good
set
game
up
of
and back in there
Pac-Man,
next
says
week.
Luis, with cool punk music blaring in the background. Tony, you might have found your spirit animal
Thanks, Tony.
in Luis. You should party together.
He's got a pizza oven even. He can cook us up some pizza.
Oh, it's true.
And a
play the
slushy
arcade.
machine.
And a slushy. I mean, see what I
That's
mean?
crazy. I don't know. It's as though Tony has been prepping for a meetup that will never happen. I don't know.
No, it's more like, can you tell I'm single?
I don't know
His
why you're
girlfriend
single.
wouldn't let
You
me get
seem
away
like a
with this.
cool, like you set up a cool place.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love a party at Tony's house. That's a
Yeah,
great
I'm laying the
idea.
carpet in there in the arcade right now. So
Well, Tony you'll have to prep it. I'm not saying everybody's not coming over this afternoon. Don't worry.
it'll be done Sunday actually. So is the plan.
So there you go. Maybe
Moving the pool
someday,
table Sunday.
in another galaxy far, far away, we'll get to Tony hosting a meetup. What else do we have?
Luis.
Don't forget to get your Trump mobile. Only $47.45 a month, and your Trump watch from $500 to $5,000. The ads are hilarious. Make America QVC again. I love it. Yeah, I mean, get your Trump merch. Don't you want to? I mean, don't you want to make something good happen for a great president?
I've never seen anything like it.
Richard Delamater, Chaplain Fred, did you receive your rod of equity and mercy that I bought for you on the show last week? Did Chaplain Fred get his rod of equity? Thank you, Richard, for the $5 super chat.
I think you've done your part in this.
I think I did give Chaplain Fred the.
Yeah, that's what got us in trouble last week. Remember the chant music?
Oh, that's right.
We got a copyright strike on it
We got demonetized because of it. That's right.
for like 5 seconds of music.
I think this one has an ethnic slur in it, so tread carefully.
Oh, Kiki Hernandez and Neza Hernandez.
Got it.
Standing up publicly against LA ice capades on behalf of the Dodger fans. Gracias, says Luis. This refers to a controversy, and I'll do this in 90 seconds or less, but it's really important, actually. The national anthem, you see her singing this here. Neza, is it her name? She sang it in Spanish at the Dodger game. Now, the Dodgers in Los Angeles have a huge Latino constituency. The demographics of the Dodgers, great brand, massive brand, and really a big part of the brand is Latino community supporting. They say 40% of their fans are Latino. Go ahead. Can we play a little bit, or do we get into trouble maybe? Anyway, you see her singing, and she, in singing, is doing the national anthem. Gorgeous voice. She's an influencer and a recording artist.
She's a beautiful singer. Wow.
And a beautiful lady. And she checked with the Dodgers to ask, can I sing the national anthem in Spanish as a show of solidarity with a lot of those who feel that the ICE programs in Los Angeles are targeting communities in a way that's unfair and are also acting in ways that are illegal. And so I don't know how she pitched it, but she said, can I sing it in Spanish? And the Dodgers said no.
Why
she went and she sang it in Spanish anyway, and now she's getting blowback.
Yeah.
I would have said, hey, if you're going to ask, then you got to respect their response. You're going to ask them whether, or you're only taking yes for an answer.
Just don't ask.
Exactly.
Do it.
But she did ask, and then she ignored it, which put her in a tough spot. She was in tears. Tony can show you a little bit of...
sing it either way. Sing it both ways.
Yeah, but that's just not what happened. So you saw a little bit of her there. She was in tears. She was apologetic. But it did turn into quite a controversy.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing in Los Angeles. So that's what Luis is talking about. But the other thing I would say, just attendant to that, is one of the criticisms of the Dodgers goes back to the first thing I was saying. With such a great, robust fan support mechanism from the Latino community, you're so much a part of that community, LA Dodgers. You'd think you'd say something in support of that community as they feel anxiety and pressure during this time of this federal crackdown on immigration. Now, the problem for the Dodgers is they also exist in the ecosphere of Major League Baseball. They're not just an LA thing. And I'm sure they're trying to balance all of these various concerns they have and making official statements about what is an immigration policy on the part of the administration that might hamper their ability to do business. I think they're a little scared, to be honest.
Don't we have a lot of baseball players that are immigrants?
Well, that's why he mentions Kiki Hernandez. So there are Dodger players who are speaking out, but it's kind of, oh my God, you're right. I mean, they come from the Dominican Republic, they come from Cuba, they come, of course, they come from Latin America. So anyway, that's a
Shohei Ohtani, right? It came from Japan.
Yeah, exactly. Tom gun, my favorite gun is a Tom gun, $20 super sticker. How about it for Tom Gunn?
Big shout out.
Big shout out, exactly. Appreciate that. As a crowd-funded show, we appreciate it. Lucy McAllister is my favorite McAllister. I hope everyone can listen to the poem that Nikki McCarty, J.D. Vance's cousin, composed and read to the crowd in Lakeland, Florida at the No Kings March there. It was beautiful and inspiring.
I
didn't know about that. I'll check it out. Thank you. Lucy McAllister. Kim didn't know about that.
No,
I had to count on you, Lucy.
I wonder if Tony can find it. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, Tony can find it. I don't know if I'd like to hear it before I just go. Tony can find it and put it on the air. See, Kim,
if Lucy McAllister is your favorite McAllister, then you trust her judgment.
Once again, I don't know.
Kim, how are you?
Come on.
Once again, I don't know, Kim. I don't know. I just
you just do it.
No, you don't get it. You don't get it, Kim. You put anything on.
If Lucy says it's good, it's good.
I deal with this constantly, every day.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it really is.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Casey gets it. Casey's been dead for years, and he gets it. Chaplain Fred with a $10 super chat. There is a special place waiting for those greedy people, Mark and Kim. Not that I'm wishing them there, but it is what it is. Well, when anybody says it is what it is, I know I'm in trouble. But Chaplain Fred, of course, you hope that there is some karmic or universal offset for the horror that is being perpetrated, but I don't know. I feel like, sadly, evil does pretty well these days. Rajaswamy says, Mark, yes, on the concrete expertise, concrete alternative, the quartz reflects the sunlight. This is about Iran and the fact that they have constructed sophisticated underground areas where the nuclear capable work is being done, where plutonium is being enriched, this kind of thing. The quartz reflects sunlight, reduces heat absorption in block buildings. It's a major game changer, especially with global warming. Interesting. Didn't know that. Thank you, Raja. Appreciate that. No violence in Silicon Valley on Saturday. Great peaceful turnout in Fresno, California, says Shannon. Santa Rosa had 5,000 to 10,000 show up, says Cameo. The military parade, James says they also used the event to peddle some kind of crypto. Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. And on the question of, the caller on KFI, is that what you're saying? I was saying that I got a caller saying that he is here legally, but his wife, he's married an illegal, meaning undocumented resident. Doesn't the illegal wife get citizenship automatically? You would think so. There was something in that, was a disconnect? I don't know. Thank you, shadow producer Calvin Wong. I don't know what the story is, but felt like an authentic conversation, meaning I believed his story. I guess that's the way I put it. And Millie says, no kings in the Hayward, Castro Valley. These are all places in the Bay Area, everyone. 1,200 to 1,500, the San Francisco Bay Area. And right next door in San Leandro was over 1,000. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing to see so many of these smaller communities. Not that, Hayward, Castro Valley, and San Leandro are small, but just, it's not like downtown San Francisco or San Jose, et cetera. Mark, did you go to a No Kings protest? Tell us about your experience. That's a long story. First of all, of course, as you can imagine, someone like myself, I have to look out for signing a lot of autographs.
Do you know who I am?
I'm
kind of a big deal.
I'm just saying, when I go out there and people stop me, usually they recognize me as reporter number 2 from the X-Files. Sometimes they recognize me as reporter number 6 from Hunter Returns, the TV movie. Sometimes they recognize me as reporter number 1 in Independence Day, or reporter number 11, which was, I think, some of my, don't be put off by the fact that I was 11. It was a great role, and I thought I did a lot with it. I guess maybe that would be, I just can't remember exactly what project it was. And then there's the American president that I've done, and the all the other. So my point is, I have to keep a low pro. I have to keep ball cap on, sunglasses on, so I blend into the crowd. But I'm not going to any place that really matters. I'm going to where, people like me go and protest. It matters, but it wasn't the downtown LA protest. I'll just say that. It was a protest closer to my home. So, the OG Dancing Weather, and people remember me for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It must be hard to step outside your door.
It is. Thank you for realizing it, Kim, because a lot of people don't.
Do you know who I am?
Exactly.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I mean, I have to build in time I don't want to turn anyone away, Loved you in that crowd scene inside the White House in Air Force One. Why didn't you have a line in that movie, they ask. Then I have to tell them the story about how my line was taken from me. I actually gave it away. Is Courtney your security? Yeah, and that's another problem. She's just not buff enough, Got to buff her up. Weren't you on Jessica Denson's podcast? Asked Myra. Yes, I was. That was terrific. She's great, and she'll be back here.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you. Protest down to the country club at Mark Thompson Estates. Exactly. I feel guilty for how high-end my protest street was.
My mom has a friend who lives in a nursing home, like one of those a place for mom type facilities, and sent me a picture of like 5 to 10 residents of this facility with their signs sitting outside on the grass in wheelchairs and various, seats and whatever. The old people will be the people that save us. The number of women, of older women, had a bunch of mom friends that were posting pictures of their moms that were in their 70s and 80s that are out there with signs marching up and down the street. Amazing.
I think that, I don't know if you literally mean that the older people will save us. I mean, I think what you mean is, and that's kind of asking, I'm not saying what you mean, only you can say what you mean.
Yeah.
But I think you're really saying, look, even communities that you would think could kind of check out and sort of be on, on cruise control, they are incensed by what's going on.
Yes.
Older women know the battles that they fought for decades to get women's reproductive freedoms, get a sense of equality. They're fighting a glass ceiling. They're fighting a patriarchy. These are all things that are unquestionably true. And that's why you say older women and older people who have seen those fights through the decades, they're showing up in a way that matters. And in that way, they may save us. They may be part of what saves us, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it better than I did. Thank you.
Well, no, I just, I guess I take it literally when we go, when we say they're going to save us. Sadly, it's going to take more than just them. I do think women, women surprise me. They surprise me because I always think they're the ones with their act together. They're the ones I wish women would run so much. I think guys have, with our machismo and our ego and just so much bad stuff that we've wrought, we've made society a lot tougher. On the other hand, we've done a lot of things and we've built a lot of things. And of course, we've created a lot of terrific institutions, but those institutions have to be held up by real people, and the people disappoint us. But I've found through the years, women disappoint me too. Women, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boeberts. I mean, that's just a little example. I can go on and on and on, up the line. Linda McMahon, Tulsi Gabbard, all these people, you can't just look to women blindly or men blindly. It's not a gender specific thing. Being an a-hole, sadly, is something that, goes across both genders. But boy, that toxic masculinity, that machismo, that, Pete Hegseth kind of thing, man, I feel like that's a real male thing generally. Sadly, it's spilled over into the fairer sex, as they say. Melly Marler says, Kim, love the story of the rest home old timers with signs. Why do we have to do this again? My husband and I wore revolutionary tri-corner hats with resist signs, and he sat on his walker. I love that. What a great name, too. Millie Marler. I love that.
There's the picture of the people from the rest home out there.
Tony, very nicely done. Look,
Thanks, Tony.
Really, Tony does the hustle. Yeah. Fremont, California was a blast. Plenty of older women. Me too. Karen Kleiner says. And it really was terrific to see. Terrific to see. Tony, one last time for the boys and girls who are still with us, June Swoon is our big meetup event. It's a virtual meetup. You can stay right in the comfort of your own home and join us. Special guest for a 2-hour virtual meetup. It'll be Thursday, June 26th. That's a week from Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30 Pacific time, 9:30 to 11:30 on the East Coast. 2 hours of swooning. Get your swoon on. Special guests and more. To join us and lock up a seat, a $50 donation to PayPal. There are PayPal links under our videos, also on our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. And please note, with your PayPal donation, June Swoon or Meetup or something like that. And in that way, we'll know that you are going to be part of things. And then after you've done that, drop me a note, RSVP, mtsmeetup@gmail.com, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Say, hey, I dropped the 50 on PayPal. We're all set. See you on the 26th kind of thing. And at RSVP. Or just say, did it. Check it out. June Swoon, everybody. It's going to be an event. Get on it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I personally would like to stay longer. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to that I want to get to tomorrow if we could, Kim.
There'll be all new, fresh news tomorrow, Mark. It's done. Whatever you've left behind, you've left behind.
Oh, I see. It's an all new, fresh day. Well, once again, Kim reminds me that you can't get to everything every day, and the stuff that you get to, you get to.
I blame you.
And that it's everything is my fault. I love that. I am hopeful that this week brings good news, but one thing we will do, regardless good or bad, is we'll break things down with David K. Johnston tomorrow. Thanks again to Professor Bill Black for the explainer on crypto and how it can be an instrument of huge grift on the part of this administration. And now, if you would please, Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We're out of time. Kim does her after party.
Bye-bye.
Until tomorrow, everyone. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Kim. Thank you all. Bye-bye.